The results are pretty good. Keep in mind this is a Gen 4 specific video, but you'll take the same procedures to figure out your wheel if you've got any other Gen or any other scooter really, and you'll do the same procedures to try to find a wheel. The thing is there's a lot more options in those Dorby Works Roll and Wrench, you know, Ruckhouse wheels. You can use car wheels, golf cart wheels, ATV wheels. So yeah, do that measurement that I show you to figure out what wheels you can use on your bike. But this one, of course, I did the measurements on a Gen 4. You need to establish a center line. I've got mine right here. This is more of a visual center line. I see some pretty wacky stuff on these Mad Dogs. These mounts are off. Sometimes these tail lights are in the wrong place. But I figure as long as the license plate lines up, it's going to look centered. And I want to get a nice visually centered rear wheel. Alright, this lug nut pattern. We're 110 millimeters across. There's 4 of them. So that's a 4x110. They are 10 millimeters thick. And they are 1.25 on the thread pitch. So what we've got is a 4x10, 10 by 1.25 lug nut and stud. To use this hub, we're going to have a center hole on the wheels that's 89.5 millimeters. The wheel here has the little machine part down here. It's 89.5 millimeters. ATV wheels are measured from the rim to the hub, this edge of the rim, and then that edge of the rim to the hub. I like to convert these things to offset. If you're going to use a car wheel, you've got to know the offset. So here's where the wheel hub lines up with the center line of the bike. If this wheel hub lined up with that center line, then that would be a 0 offset wheel. And remember, if the wheel hub was way out here, so there wasn't much wheel exposed to the outside, that would be a positive offset wheel. These wheels have a positive offset, and the face of the wheel's out here more. There's tons of wheel back inside there. These wheels obviously have a positive offset. That's probably a 7-inch wide wheel. All the part that sticks out is on the other side. What looks cool is if that wheel are flipped around and you have a nice deep dish look where you can see inside the wheel, that's a negative offset. But what we have is a wheel hub that lines up right here. And so left of center line, that's a negative offset. So an ET of negative 12 millimeters is what we have. If we change this hub, we have to measure this again and find out what the offset on the hub we put on there is. This stock Mad Dog hub is about 3 inches wide. But according to the internet, the GY6 universal hub is 2 inches wide. I still would not even go based on that. I would want the hub in hand. I'd want to measure the offset first before I tried ordering my wheel. Now keep in mind, when you look at ATV wheels, they're going to give you a measurement from this hub, which is the dotted line, to the outside of the wheel, and from the dotted line to the outside of this wheel. So it'll be something like a 5-3. Sticks out 3 inches on this side, 5 inches on this side. 12 millimeters is only half an inch. So you would need something that said, for example, if you're going to do an 8-inch wheel, you would need something that says like 3.5 and then 4.5. But will an 8-inch wheel fit on this bike? This is a Gen 4. They have the narrowest shock mount here. And we can find out. We'll take our center line, if we get our wheel centered, and we'll measure 4 inches over from each side. Remember, 8 inches is the distance on the inside. This is a 5.5-inch wheel. That's inside to inside where the beads sit. But the wheel measures almost 6.5 inches. When you're talking about an 8-inch wheel, it's going to measure almost 9 inches wide. So to add more to the confusion is while the rest of the world is measuring the width of the wheel to the inside where the bead is, and not counting this part here. ATVs, cars. The golf cart world is counting the outside to the outside. So this might be a 4.5 inch, 4-inch wheel. Not really sure. But in the golf cart world, it's going to be a maybe 5 or 5.5. You'll see online that these Gen 5s and I think Gen 1s have a 7-inch wheel. You know, 12 by 7, 14 by 7. That wheel is only 6.5 inch wide on the inside of the tire is. Yeah, so you can see it's about 6.25. Outside to outside might be 7. So they're using like the golf cart measurement. So from the center line, half of your wheel is 4 inches. And to get that wheel centered, we're gonna just about hit that shock. It's gonna barely clear. But that's with an 8-inch wheel. When you push it over to 4.25 is where we're gonna be. Yeah, it hits the shock. So an 8-inch wheel will not fit centered on a Gen 4. Now, you have to ask yourself if you're willing to live with it a little bit off-centered. I know a lot of guys say they handle weird, but it may not be that noticeable, a 1/4 inch to the right. Now, if you look at all your wheels, like your Ruck House, your Reckless Customs, you know, Rolling Wrench, they're all still on the same wheel. You get into these wheels and they're a 5+3 offset. So they're 8-inch wide though. Yeah, so all those wheels are 5+3. And they come with the 4x110 bolt pattern. So this Ruck House 8-inch wheel has got the right bolt pattern, okay, and it's got a 5+3 offset, which that makes no sense. I think the wheel's backwards. It really doesn't matter if the wheel's frontwards or backwards. So I think it was designed as a 5+3, but we're running it as a 3+5. And so this will bolt onto your Maddog wheel hub. It'll bolt right on it. So we go and get that wheel, we put it on our Maddog, and we end up with the wheel sitting right here. Here's your wheels, your edges, and it actually fits on there. And I've seen some guys on the forum do this. And so here's, we'll say, the center line of the wheel right here. It's way off. And then here's the center line of the bike, and here's the center line of the wheel. So it's way out to the right, and when it gets that far out, it does handle funny. We need to get the wheel to go back in this way more. And we do that with that other hub. That other hub is supposed to be about 1 inch shorter. Now, the only issue with the 8 inches, like we said, on the Gen 5, this shock mounts out further, and that's to fit this 7 inches in here. When you're talking about fitting 8 inches into here, we could probably do it on this Gen 5. But on a Gen 4, that shock mounts in tighter. And we just measured, we can't fit that 8-inch in there. Now you can, but it's gonna be off-centered. And I'm not busting on anyone for having an off-centered tire. I've got buddies that run 8-inch wheels on Gen 4s. They look great. But just know that that center line is gonna be off a little bit to the right. And they all are, if you look at them. So yeah, that's just your personal decision whether you want to do that off-centered tire look or not. It looks cool, but it just kind of bugs me. So I figured I'd go with a 7-inch wheel and keep it centered. Now keep in mind, this stock wheel here that comes on these Gen 4s is only, I think, 4 or 4.5 inches wide. So yeah, a 7's gonna look fine on here. It's gonna look really, it's still gonna give it a fat look. So what I'm gonna do is shop wheels that fit this hub. These will be mostly ATV, golf cart wheels, things like that, and see if I can find anything I like. If I can't, then I will switch hubs. I'll get that GY6 universal hub, and that'll give me a whole lot of more wheel options to shop. But we have to know which size wheel to shop. When you look at these wheels, they have width, they have offset, or if it's ATV, they're gonna have 2 numbers. The first number is the measurement in inches from the inside lip of the rim to the center where the hub is, where the hub meets the rim. The second number is from the inside of the lip of the outside of the rim to, again, the face of the hub where the wheel mounts. My brain hurts! So I'm wanting to go either 7 or 7.5. That'll give me two different wheel options to choose from. From the center line, I measure 7 inches, so I want to get it centered, so 3.5 on each side. For the 7.5, that's 3 3/4 on each side. And there's my 7.5 wheel and 7-inch wheel from the center line. I want that wheel centered in here perfectly. Now I'm going to measure from this offset to get the numbers that I need to show off this wheel. So from the offset line, I'm getting, looks like 4 3/8. Probably not going to make that one. We'll call it a 4 1/4. It'll be close enough. And on the other side, from the offset line, it's going to be 3 1/4. So in ATV language, to find this 7-inch wheel that fits in here and stays centered, is going to be 3 plus 4. We'll call that the offset. It's just the way the ATV guys do it, or the golf cart guys. Will probably have an easier time finding this in a 7-inch. In the 7.5 inch, 3.25, 4.25, that's going to be tough to find. So now, if we can find the 110, 4x110 bolt pattern in a different wheel, we need to know the car type offset and backspacing readings also. Now when you're looking at car wheels, a lot of times they'll talk about backspace and not offset. So we'll call this the backspace. It's important for car guys because when they go to wide wheels, they don't care how far the wheel sticks out this way. They just want it to look wide and cool. But what they are concerned is about the inside of the wheel hitting tie rods and steering arms and things like that. So they need to make sure the inside of that wheel does not go too far in and interfere with stuff when they turn that wheel or when they mount it. So they talk about backspace. And the backspace is the measurement from where the hub mounts in the center of the hub to the very outside of the wheel. So you can see here this wheel has a backspace of 2 1/4 inches. The reason backspace is good to know, because if the manufacturer only lists backspace as one of his measurements, we can figure out the offset from that. If I'm looking at a 7-inch wheel, but when we're talking about backspace, we're talking about the whole entire width. So let's call it 8 inches. So we've got an 8-inch wheel that's really 7 inches, and they give me a backspace of 3.5 inches, let's say. Well, I can tell you 3.5 inches is not the middle of 8 inches. The middle of 8 inches is 4. So this thing, it's backspaced 1/2 inch. I can take that 1/2 inch from my center line and figure out the offset. So now I know my offset is 1/2 inch. We're talking about a negative offset. So if the backspace measurement is less than half the wheel, that's a negative offset. If the backspace measurement is more than half the wheel, then that's a positive offset. So right here, if this was my wheel and it fit perfectly, and I was advertising it, I would advertise a 7-inch wheel with, notice how I come over here to the outside of the wheel, with a 3.5 inch backspace. To get something to fit this hub, I need a 3.5 inch backspace on a car tire, or I need a 1/2 inch, we'll call it negative offset on a car wheel. Or on an ATV golf cart, I need a 3 plus 4. This is going with the 7-inch idea. And I would need that center hole to be 89.5 or bigger, and a 4x10 pattern. Good luck. And keep in mind, if you really find a wheel you like and you're in love with it and you want to put it on your bike, they make adapters that changes this bolt pattern to a different bolt pattern. They're thick though. They also make just spacers for these hubs. And but the problem is, the more you space this hub out, the more positive offset you get and the less cool it looks. All your cool rim is on the inside, and on the outside you just see the spokes, you know. So we want that cool look. Looks like a fat tire. We want to be able to see that deep dish wheel. So we want to keep this as thin as possible. So I'm shopping for wheels. The big issue is I can only find 4+3 offset on my ATV wheels, and I need 3+4. 3+4 seems to be a golf cart thing, not an ATV thing. And same with all these things. So I can find the 3+4 in some really cool looking wheels. Yeah, they're made for, problem is they're made for golf carts. So the lug bolts have a 4x4 pattern. That's like the golf cart standard. Where the ATV standard is like our Maddogs here. It's 4x110 for the lug pattern. So you can either find the offset you want or the lug you want, but you can't seem to find both. That's where I get into looking for another hub. So once I get that hub, I'm gonna mount it. I'm gonna do the same exact measurements and then go wheel shopping again. Well, I gave up on finding a wheel, so I ordered a hub. And after I ordered that hub last night, my buddy from Winter Haven, he says, hey, I got the wheel you need. I'm like, oh, you're a liar. Oh, damn if he didn't. Let's get all the specs I needed right there. He had the wheel. So I needed a 7-inch wheel with a 3x4 offset. I'll take 12 or 13. This is a 12-inch wheel. It measures 7 inches inside to inside, 7 7/8 outside. So it has a 3 and a 4 offset if it's mounted this way. And that puts a valve stem on the inside. It was designed to be mounted like this, which they call a 4-3 offset. This wheel's made for a Polaris Razor, I guess, RZR 200. And according to the specs online, it's 12x7. It has a 4+3 10mm holes. That's good. That's what we need for our 10mm lugs. And it's got the 4x110 bolt pattern. And it's actually a front wheel for a Razor. It's not the rear wheel. The rear wheel is a 12x8. This is a 12x7. So it's the front wheel. The rear wheel has a 4x136 bolt pattern. The front wheels have the 4x110. And the rear wheel has a 3+5 offset, where the front wheels have the 4+3 offset. And like I say, we're not running it in 4x3 configuration. That would be like this. We're going to run it in the cooler looking configuration with the 4 inches on the outside, so it looks like an even deeper dish wheel, and do it in a 3x4. And the center of this thing is what's pretty critical. It needs to be 3.5 inches or 89 millimeters, because the center is what's going to keep this wheel centered on the hub. Since it has these flat type nuts, the lug nuts don't self-center the wheel. It's actually centered around the hub. Most wheels mount with these kind of cone things to center them. I think 60-degree cone lug nuts. And flat track wheels are 45 degrees. They got a lot of side loads, but 60 degrees is a standard. And these wheels are made to take the flat nuts. So the center line is right there. That's midway between the wheel. I'm going to see how that lines up. I'm using these bolts. I just got them in their hand tight to hold the wheel on. I'll have to get some actual flat lugs. And there's the center line of the wheel. Perpendicular runs up to the center line of the bike. So it's going to work out perfect with the stock hub. Our numbers and our math worked. So that's a 130. It's not a very pretty tire, but we're going to stretch it. It's not even a very good brand. I think it's a Shinko. If you're going to stretch a tire, a Pirelli, something real, one of these city grips. Michelin, these things have really soft rubber. They stretch real nice. These Chinese things, they're almost made of plastic. We're going to see if we can stretch it onto this big rim. I'm going to show you a couple of tips though. Before you go changing tires on a big wide ATV tire, watch my tire changing video. and know what this little recessed area in the wheel is for. Same with this one. So the tire iron should never touch the wide side of the tire, this wide part. If you do, you're going to dent it. You don't want to bend your nice expensive new wheel. Look at this wheel here. See those dents right there? The tire iron never should be on this side. You always work from this side. You work it on and on, off and off. These wide ATV tires can really make it throw a fit, because we're used to these regular narrow tires where this centerpiece is in the center, like a bicycle or a motorcycle or anything else. But when you get this wide piece, it makes it more difficult, but stick to this side and you'll be fine. I know a lot of you guys don't have bead breakers. I've got a bead breaker, but sometimes they're really tough to get the bead off. I'm going to show you a cool trick.
What an idiot! Oh, what a loser! You can do it!
Alright, skinny side up. Get our tire mixed up here. So rolling like that, right? We're gonna go skinny side up, this side up. There we go, look, fell right in place. Didn't have to use my tire iron. Now we'll put this side on, skinny side again. This one, look, this tire iron on. You've got to get that bead into this little part right here. Pull it over. We got her down in there now. Soft aluminum, don't take too big of bites. Little bites. Just little bites. There we go. Boom. It's on. There's a little skinny tire on a big fat rim. I'm making a lot of assumptions that you guys don't have bead breakers and you don't have blast cannon guns to set these beads. I'm figuring if you could afford that stuff, you would have just bought a Ruckus and had Dorby install this tire. I wonder if that guy Dorby knows how good looking he is. If I can get this 130 to seat on this big wheel, I'll be into this project for 70 bucks. $70 fatty, that's pretty good. Yeah, the little lug nuts were 10 bucks and got the wheel for 60 bucks for something really slippery. A lot of soap and water. All in there. Both sides. No valve stem in here. We're going to try to push air in here as fast as we can. About the fastest you can push air in with an air compressor is to get rid of the valve stem and use one of these. Put on the and they were just blown out. I'm going to try a second strap. I'm getting the orange side to seat up pretty good, but not this other side. Maybe I can get it tighter with another strap, just on the edge. Put my valve stem in. I shot a little bit of air in there just so I don't knock that bead off again. That one came right off. Alright, once you get the straps on, they're off, put your air pressure in there you want. Yeah, about 32, like any motorcycle. There you have it, a cool ass stretched looking tire. I'm not sure. I think the fatty's when the tire goes all the way to the cross. This is probably called a stretched. You get to see the little beads on the end. It's kind of cool looking. You can't run with the cool kids unless you have white lettering on your tire, so gotta do that. Now for a quick message from my sponsor. As an avid motorcyclist, I only ride Shinko tires. Whether I'm cruising Beachfront Avenue or doing a blistering 28 miles an hour on the back straight of Daytona 500, I trust Shinko. At the Shinko Tire Factory, had my safety in mind as the #1 priority when making my tire. Yeah, this wheel looks great. It's such a better looking bike now. It's perfectly centered. 7-inch wheel. Still waiting on my red lug nuts. I ordered those, I don't know, a couple days ago. I think I got them off eBay. Let's see how long it takes to get those. That's the trick. So, the 8-inch wheel guys are using a 5x3 flipped to 3x5, and if you want to do the 7-inch wheel thing and make sure it fits your Gen 4, then you can do the what is this, the 4x3 flip to a 3x4. And you got to have the kind of wheel that can expose from either side. Problem I was finding, a lot of these wheels are not reversible. You can't just flip them around. You know, they only look good on one side. But this is kind of cool. It looks good on both sides. And I'll tell you, that 8-inch wheel might fit in there. If it's 8 inches outside to outside, like golf cart standard, it may. This is an ATV wheel. So 7 inches inside, it's an 8-inch wheel. So yeah, it could, 8-inch wheel could fit in there from a golf cart. But getting that offset, that 3x5 offset, won't work with a stock hub. You want to do the stock hub, keeps it cheap. I bought that wheel for 60 bucks. Lug nuts were 10. Yeah, so 70 bucks. And that's one cheap stretched fatty wheel.